Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another Fireside Chat with Waytat. Uh, I I don't have any excuses. Um, I've just kind of been getting more and more late on these. Um, which I hope is fine because these are supposed to be a little bit more casual. Um, I have a bit of a busy life, busy schedule. Pretty stressful stuff. Uh, nothing to, nothing for you guys to really be worried about, but um, yeah, I have stuff going on, so it's been a little bit hard to just sit down and record one of these because it feels like I'm always on the always on the go. Always got to do something. Um, but yeah, thank you for tuning in and listening to this. Um, this week, instead of doing like a tier list or anything, as you can probably see by our classic uh, fireplace screen, um, instead of doing a tier list or anything, instead, I'm just going to be talking. Um, and this week, our topic of conversation is actually not going to be on the wheel picker because turns out the wheel picker cleared the cache, so I don't have my options anymore. Instead, what we're going to be doing this week is I am going to be talking about Warhammer, but specifically, um, we're going to be talking about which Chaos God I would most likely fall to. Um, and before you answer with Slanesh, first, maybe you're probably right, but we'll talk through each one and kind of reason through why I think the way I think about it. Um, we're actually gonna start with probably the least likely for me, and that would be corn. Um, corn is the least likely for me because, like, on one hand, if I'm in the position to be accepting the power from one of these chaos gods, things have not gone great for me on a personal level, and I've really just devolved into my villain arc and decided to be the bad guy. Um, so yeah, I would have a lot of anger and resentment, which is something that Korn really likes. But Korn also is like the most miserable one to worship. Um, because kind of the two states they are in for Korn pretty constantly is either ungodly, unbridled hate and rage, and post nut, like post rage nut clarity of realizing, oh fuck, I'm a terrible monster. I'm barely a person anymore. I don't recognize who I am. Um, and all I do is kill. And then getting extremely angry again and killing some more. And, rinse and repeat over and over again. Um, because like in Warhammer 40k, um, there's excerpts from like the World Eaters codexes where it's like, oh yeah, no, we're all miserable. And it's mostly because we've realized like, wow, this just straight up sucks. Like we can't even be sad all the time. We're just angry, and being angry makes us depressed because we realize like, wow, in our moments of clarity that we've fallen really far. And then, like, we used to be poets and scholars, and like we used to have interests and hobbies. Like, I used to do things I wasn't killing, and like, man, it would be really nice just to die, just so I could be free. Like, I'm not interested in going down that road. Again, it would be nice to be a lot stronger. Uh, it would also be very nice to not have a ton of mutations. But it's also one of those things where, like, my day to day life, I don't really have a lot of application for worshiping the god of blood, murder, and war. Um, Even though he does kind of have that honor thing about him, it's also kind of a weird, twisted sense of honor. But like, I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm not that kind of person. But the next least likely is Zinch. Now first, given that I'm a massive fucking nerd, you might assume that I would go for Zinch, um, just because it'd be like some magic, some magicy doos. Um, and that's actually less tempting than corn, because corn at the very least, because I don't know if you guys are super well aware, but I fucking hate my job. And most of the reason why I hate my job is because of the other people who are there. And if you're one of the other people who are listening to my show for some reason, right now, uh, get fucked. You know what you did. Um, but yeah, I don't like working there. Um, so at the very least, like if I worship corn, I could just be like, well, I'm just gonna fucking turn my brain off and just burn the whole place down. Um, with Zinch though, it's different because yeah, you get magic, but you also get horrendous mutations and basically like full knowledge that you aren't in control anymore. That like once you give yourself up to Zinch, it's like, and it's basically inevitable that he's going to use your entire life to make some infant uh in like, very small, some infinitesimally infant, infinitesimally small point to someone else that he just barely cares about more than you. Like, sure, you could dedicate your entire life to Zinch and he'll give you like some cool magic. He will also turn half your body into a living fire that burns time instead of matter. But like he'll give you magic, he'll give you powers and help you to uh achieve your ambitions, but also he is really only keeping you around because of the whole like fire time thing, so that he can then turn your entire body into time fire to help Armin do like a single spell that like is a glancing blow off the side of an Imperial Knight. Like, let's not fool ourselves here. Being a worshiper of Zinch sucks almost more than it does for corn. Because like with corn, while you are miserable because you realize you've become an engine of only death and nothing else, at the very least you're not constantly under the knowledge that like I'm being played by someone who's smarter than me, and my life will end in a way that isn't like karmically justified or ironic. My death will just suck. And it will be for nothing. It'll just be for some minor convenience later on. And ultimately, it'll be no one's fault but my own for even going along with this. But fuck it. I've already picked it. Um, and, there's no real escaping Zinch. So, like, yeah, I just couldn't deal with it. The anxiety would drive me insane. Um, because again, you're getting outplayed by someone that you know is smarter than you and has all the cards. Like you don't have any grounds to stand on. They can just fuck you over whenever they want. Um, but speaking of fucking, we have our two kind of questionable ones. The ones that are I'm kind of tied up on. Um, and that is Slanesh and Nurgle. Um, so it kind of helped me decide a little bit, less for you to decide, but just to help me decide a little bit. So Nurgle is the god of disease. He's the god of death, renewal, life, rebirth. Um, he he's very fatherly to his worshippers. Like he views them as his children, and he loves them all all life. He loves all life. The problem is, the problem is that he loves a mold spore as much as you. Which is not to say that he doesn't value you much. It means that he values that mold a lot. And every microbe, he thinks viruses are living. He loves his viruses. Um, and he wants all of his children to do well. And unfortunately, when you love all of your children equally, a couple billion outweighs one. So, the couple billion bacteria that are floating in your bloodstream that are slowly killing you, your life is worth the sacrifice to make sure that a billion of his children get to live a happy life. Um, Slanesh, on the other hand, is the god slash goddess slash deity uh, of excess, ultimately. That usually ends up being sex, but it's really like any sensory experience dialed up, not to 11, but to like 33. Um, yeah, just sensory experiences, um, and perfection and excess, just all those things brought to like as high of a level as they could possibly get. Um, so I am pros and cons. Pros of Nurgle. First of all, immune to all disease. Pretty good. Two, tough as shit. Pretty good. Number three, perfectly accepting of your lot in life. Never once having any question of what your purpose is, because you know your purpose. Your purpose is to live long enough to spread as many diseases for Grandfather Nurgle as your little heart could desire before you die and rot and let Papa Nurgle take you back to the garden. Yeah, yeah, a little bit. I think like that's not classical nihilism. Classical nihilism is like minimalism, but like that's like some good like nihilistic shit of like, yeah, no, your purpose in life is to die and spread disease. So that's what you should do. And then you should just let yourself die. And then you should become a corpse from more things to live inside of. Um the other benefit is you are free of all pain. Um Followers of Nurgle literally can't feel any pain. That's why most of them are like super gross and distended with all their guts hanging out and stuff. Is because they're so bloated with disease that their body is ripping apart, but they don't feel it because they don't feel any pain. Like it doesn't hurt and it actually doesn't disturb them or disgust them because their brain is corrupted. Like they don't see this as disturbing. It's just like a normal thing. So it is a plus. It would absolutely entirely cure my hypochondria because at that point, like I wouldn't give a shit anymore. I would just be like infecting myself with diseases to see what happens if you just leave them untreated. Um, like Nurgly William would be like, putting like parasites in my body just to like, oh well, the hypochondria's gone, so I might as well like do the thing that my hypochondria was worried about, like having skin parasites and shit and like hollowing me out. Not in the fun way. Not in the fun way. If I want to get hollowed out in the fun way, I would go with Slanesh. Anyways, so pros and Nurgle. The cons of Nurgle: one, big stinky, big stinky. Uh, you are rotting inside and out while you are alive. Your body is filled with disease and pus and shit, and like you are pissing yourself actively, constantly. By choice, you could stop pissing. You just don't. Um, all of your human bodily processes are happening all at once, unendingly, and you're happy about it. You like the way it smells. You like the way it looks. You like the way it feels between your butt cheeks. Like it, you're foul. You're disgusting. Which I, unaltered, would have a huge problem with. Number two, I have other people to consider, namely my girlfriend. If this question was posed to me and I picked Nurgle, I would absolutely be fucking up the lives of everyone that I care about, unless they also were given this choice and picked Nurgle. Because like, I don't know, man. There's no way that I could do that to her. Of like, hey, guess who I picked, and like have the fucking three pus boils on my arm. It's like, yeah, I'm going to become even more disgusting than I already am, and I'm going to burst open at the seams and become an intestine monster. Um, do you think you could still love me and force her to lie to me and say yes? Um, meanwhile she picked Slanesh because she's smarter than I am. Um, and like that's the I think that would ultimately be kind of the worst part of it. The other bad thing is that it's very difficult to hide that you worship Nurgle, and it really limits what you're capable of doing. Because like if it's the modern world right now, um, yeah, it would be. I would get dragged off to a black site somewhere. Um, because I'm already not outrunning the cops. There's no way I'm gonna outrun the cops when I'm Nurgle infested. Like, um, so I'd probably get dragged off to a black site somewhere and experimented on. Of course, it's not gonna do anything really, because I'm already basically a walking corpse. Um, but yeah, now that I think about it, I'm not sure how much of let's go through the pros and cons for Slanesh. I think you can kind of tell where I'm leaning. So, benefits Slanesh. You are going to become perfect at something. Like, I will be the perfect podcaster. And, well, I'll probably just be the perfect artist. Maybe I'll get really good at jerking off. Um, turn into, One Stroke Willie? I can workshop the name. But, you will become perfect at something. Also, everything feels good. Just as much as it feels bad. Everything feels really good. Which, hey, that's pretty nice. Also, all the drugs and hard candy that you want with no judgment. Which, hey, that's fair. I Yeah. I mean, really stripping away all like the social concerns. Like, if I had these mutations where it's like, oh yeah, you can just like stick shit in your dick hole and it'll feel real nice, and then like turn the blend mode on and just rip your penis apart, and like 24 hours you're fine again, and you have a demon dong. Like, okay, this is okay. Like, yeah, it sounds like really gross and disturbing to say, but that's because we are normal people operating in the normal world. If you are at a point where you're coming to worship one of the chaos gods and you just have to pick one, you fucked up somewhere along your life path. And like at this point, just pick the thing that makes you the happiest. I think honestly, the thing that would make me the happiest is living a life of pleasure. So, I mean, the downsides of Slanesh. One, you're never truly fulfilled. It's a whole bunch of like short-term dopamine rushes that just get more and more intense, like real-world addiction. Except there is no upper limit. In the real world, the law and morality, and I mean that one's a little bit thinner, but the law, some morals and ethics, and also the laws of reality stop you from going too crazy. Some people who worship Slanesh become so obsessed with like reeing so loud that it shatters fucking planets apart, and they're fully capable of doing it. They can just do that. They can just scream, release the unholiest re to ever exist, and crack a planet in half. They can just do that. Um, some of them decide like, yeah, you know what? I want to be the perfect swordsman, and they figure out how to use a sword to cut like oxygen molecules in half and cause nuclear fission reactions or like atomic fission reactions and blow people up using sword swings. Um, or again like the sex thing, or the drugs thing. Like you just get so good at it and everything feels so good that like at some point what you consider sex is like like it would be like at some point going down the road of worshiping Slanesh, sticking one of your legs into a um into a combine tractor while sucking a dick with one of your four mouths and throwing a man into the combine tractor with you with your hand that's free because your other hand's jerking off. That is like vanilla to you at some point. Like real like kink shit is you cutting off the bottom half of your body with a handsaw. Like it at a certain yeah, I mean, these two things kind of converge at some point. Also, I'm not saying that this is the shit I would do if I were uh, capable of it. I'm saying a person gets to this point when they've lived for 1,000 years because Slanesh, if nothing else, loves a good irony. Um, and like all pleasures of the flesh have lost their meaning, you know? Um, but I will say, I mean, out of the four, I think it is going to be Slanesh. And ultimately, it doesn't come down to the reason of like, horny. It actually comes down to the reason that like, out of all of them, Slanesh actually feels like the one where you're the least self-aware. Because, sure, you might have moments of clarity of like, oh fuck, I'm just pursuing like high intensity dopamine rushes. I'm not actually happy. I'm just like constantly searching for the next thing to stave off this feeling of like desperation for approval from other people. And then the super ultra mega acid kicks in and you forget that you ever existed in the first place and you become one with not the universe but you become one with the warp, and you would like feel things crawling in your skin and it's like, oh shit, I have become the warp. And then you go back to your body and you're like, well, that was fun, time to ground some people into powder and snort it. Like you don't you don't you're not aware of how fucked up your circumstances are until someone like forces you out of them, you know? And like sure, it's not a happy existence, constant pain and pleasure intermingled while also high as shit. But at best, it's a short existence because Slanesh doesn't notice you and doesn't give a single shit. And at worst, is a very prolonged existence filled with a whole lot of weird sex and a lot of chemicals being injected into parts of the body that is not okay. And a lot of violence. And I think if you know a whole lot about just in general how I behave, that doesn't sound too far off from like some of my most hedonistic dreams of what I want. So yeah, yeah, I'm going with Slanesh. But yeah, hopefully with that, I don't know. It's I hope that was at least a little bit interesting. Um, Leave a comment below on which one of the Chaos Gods you would choose. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, share it around. Maybe not this one. This one might be a little intense for a beginner, but share stuff around. Make sure to listen to Waytat and Waytat Nerd. Send in emails for just some like suggestions and just to talk. Um, Also, was there another thing? I don't think there was another thing. Good night.